almost everyone who registered here. So my name's Adrienne, and I am the somewhat new communications person for the diocese. I started in January, and since then I've talked with a few of you about your websites and your hopes and your dreams for your church websites. And so I've taken all of your questions that you typed into the form stack. I've looked at all of your websites if you typed them into the form stack. I've also kind of gone around and looked at the websites for the churches. If you didn't put them in the form stack, don't worry, you did put your church name, and I looked that up. So I think I have a good idea of what most of your sites look like at the moment. So I'm Episcopalian. I'm going to give you the lowdown a little bit on me. So I grew up in the Episcopal Church. So I've been around the block with you Episcopalians for about 45 years. So I kind of know the culture, and I understand the church, and I understand where you're all coming from. And so I'm going to try to help you as best I can, knowing that I am well versed in the Episcopal world, and I also love the Episcopal world. So, and I want to make it better, and I want all of your congregations to thrive. And I think that one of the ways that we can do that in 2022 is to give you a good front door that people can walk in on the internet. At this point in time, especially after the pandemic, you know, we're looking at a really strong digital push for just about everything. And especially now when things are starting to get a little scary out there, and people might be going back to online worship and things like that. And from what I understand and from what I've seen, you all have done a really good job of quickly adapting to online services. And whether it's through Facebook, whether it's through YouTube, I'm just blown away by how quickly a lot of you were able to get things up and running, and kudos to you. But now we should take some time to think about that and how we're presenting it and how we're trying to attract new people with our websites and communicate information to our current members. So I'm going to go ahead and launch my slideshow. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I'm not sure I'll be able to see if you raise your hand. I've got so many windows open here, so I'm afraid that if you raise your hand, I might miss it. But please do put them in the chat. And if you have a question, unmute yourself and just ask me. I don't mind. So I want to be able to cover the things that you need and get through the material, but also if you have a question, chances are somebody else may have the same question. We all know how that works. So you should be seeing my PowerPoint presentation right now. Holler if you don't, or go like this. So we have to have a website, everyone. That's just how it is. I did hear a few, do we have to have a website? This is really cumbersome, and we don't have people to update it, and you know the problems. You do. I'm sorry. As much as I'd like to say, no, you don't need one. You have to have a website. So why do we have to have a website? To communicate with our congregations and with our communities, because the culture right now is no longer, well, our people don't go online. Well, I think the pandemic changed that for a lot of people. And what I used to hear at some of the previous churches where I've worked is, well, our median age is up there and they don't go online. Well, that's not the case anymore because everybody goes online now. They figured it out because they had to. And so while they're online, they're looking at your website. And it's a great way to communicate with the members that you have. And it's a great way to open the door to the members that you want. Do you need a website if you have an active Facebook page? Absolutely. Because Facebook and your website do two different things. While some of it overlaps, your Facebook page isn't going to, it might attract new people, but a lot of people hate Facebook. Raise your hand if you hate Facebook or you're not even on Facebook. And so that's not the best way to communicate with people who might want to know more about your congregation or your church. Facebook is when you're working on Facebook or posting on Facebook, you should have your existing members in mind. You should be setting up some, meeting notices or events, posting your newsletter there as a link to your website, or if you do it through Constant Contact or MailChimp, it will give you a link to that. I'm not going to get into all that right now, but posting things like that. There is a donation button on Facebook that you can use. And mostly like your photo albums and your weekly sermons. Facebook's going to have a place for worship times and locations. So there is some overlap there with your website, but the core of who you are should be on your website. So that's your about page, your staff, your history, if you want to do a history page, your theology, maybe a pastor's blog, anything like that, worship times and locations, always, weekly sermons. And this is important here, welcoming new people. And then donations. And then if you want to, maybe add a members area. And we'll get into that a little bit later, so that people who first go to your website aren't inundated with, here's who we are without you. And here's this exclusive club called this Episcopal Church that we are. And this is what we look like without you here. So what we want to do is, for that homepage, kind of take off some of that member stuff and make it a little bit more like simplify it, and then maybe add some members areas in the menu. So I went through some of your questions, and they're great questions. A lot of you had some overlapping questions, which is not surprising, of course. And so the design, I got this one quite a bit. The design's outdated. It's cluttered, content's hard to find, site is difficult to update. These are not my opinions that I'm saying right now. I did say that I looked at all of your sites, but these are things that you typed into the form stack for me to answer and to address. So so that's the one, that was the one that I think came up the most. There was mention of, we feel like our site's outdated, and that's really important. And we're going to get to that and hopefully update some sites in the near future. Costs. Actually, I just got a cost from Melissa. For those who don't have leadership in place to get the grants. Okay. There are resources available to leverage. Okay, well, we'll talk about that later, Melissa. I'd be interested to know what you know about the grants for technology, because I don't know a lot about that. So let's put that away for later because I do want to know about that. But because the cost was a big thing. We can't afford to update our site with a professional, and we don't have a person on staff to do it. So you're relying a lot on volunteers, which brings me to the next problem that was presented. We have a volunteer, but that person won't take suggestions, and the site is inaccessible for others to update. So what I'd like to do is present some user-friendlier options to maybe you could open the door and make it a team effort so that you're logging in and maybe someone from your vestry is able to log in. So it's not just this, I'm the tech person and I know how to do this and you don't. You know, that can sometimes get in the way of progress. Content, what are the essentials we need on our website? What should the menu have? How do we add a video and donations to our page? Tips, we want our site to be appealing to attract prospective members and clergy. Now, this is something new to me, having been in the church for so long, and I did go through a couple search processes with our with the church here in Wyandotte when Father Bruce left, but I didn't know that it's kind of like a thing where you need a good, you know, you want to attract clergy with your website. So that was new to me, and I'm excited to hopefully help some of you get to that stage so that you can attract that clergy member that you want. So the first thing that I think, and really I feel very strongly about this, you need to have before you go into redesigning your website or rebuilding it or anything like that, you need to have a communication strategy. And this is a team effort. You know, you make decisions on the vestry as a team. And I feel like when it comes to church communications, that team effort isn't always there. And so that first step isn't just about the website, it's about how you're going to communicate as a church and as a congregation to not only your members, but to prospective members. And you're going to do that, how you're going to do that visually online with your website, with your newsletter, with Facebook, with anything that's coming out of your church. And almost in a way, begin to treat it like your brand. You know, you have a logo. If you don't have a logo, let's talk, because that's an easy thing for me to fix for you. Okay, so I think most of you do have some kind of a church logo, but you're going to go into it, you know, that's your first thing you look at is your logo. What's your style? Well, we'll start at the top. How does your church communicate? You know, Facebook, newsletter, how are you communicating? And then what do you communicate? Do you communicate events, seasonal specific things? Do you communicate a pastor's blog, letters to the congregation? How do you do that? Do you do it through a phone tree? Do you do it through mailed letters home? You know, just start to gather all these things together. And I want to say before I get too far ahead, all this will be on the website, and then I'll send it all out to you in an email next week so that you'll be able to revisit these slides and reignite your creativity. So don't be too overwhelmed right now with writing everything down. But just write some notes so that you can remember what your thoughts are. as I talk. Who is your audience? So this is an interesting thing. One of the churches that I used to work for, it was a Methodist church that had come together. There were 5 Methodist churches that closed all together, and it was in the Downriver area. So it was Westmount Church, you might know the names of them, Glenwood over here in Wyandotte, Dick's United Methodist, there were, and some other ones that are kind of lost to me right now. So they came together and they started a new church. And they were trying to attract young people. And this is something that I hear all the time. And when I started working for them, at their initial launch. They had just purchased a building and they were trying to get out into the community. And all I kept hearing was, well, we're trying to attract young people. But the thing is that wasn't their thing. So we had to figure out what their thing was. So we figured out that their demographic was grandparents. They were all grandparents. And there's still other grandparents who need a church. Not just young people need a church, right? So as we went through working with the demographics and trying to figure out who our audience was, they became this really dynamic, active group of grandparents. And they grew. They're growing still. And they're doing fun grandparenty things together. Along with that, it's not like you needed grandkids to be there, but I'm just saying that that's what they labeled themselves. And so that a lot of them do bring their grandchildren to the events, but they don't necessarily bring them on Sundays. So the website had to appeal to kind of their generation, and the events had to appeal to their generation, and they're doing great and they're growing, and that's a lot. And actually they're all online, so they all Zoom, and they are on websites, and so that, to me, that is not an excuse. So I don't think that's a roadblock anymore. So what's the best way to reach that audience? That's how you're going to have to figure out your language. And first of all, what you're communicating and who you're communicating it to. And this is important. Who's doing the communicating for you? And is that the voice you want to be filling in the blanks and typing in the information on your website? Because I know a lot of you right now are vestries. And so I think that when you're going to look at this redesign or what goals you're going to reach, you need to look at them as a team and not just have one person who decides what goes on your website and what doesn't. What are your goals? How much time do you want to devote to this each week? And then also, along with that goal, maybe there's something, 6 months from now where you do a relaunch, a relaunch of your church, a relaunch of your congregation, a relaunch of your community, and do it all at once, but give yourself some time to develop those ideas and those goals. And, and then the last one, decide what your style is. What's your style? And does your website match your church? Because there were some websites that I visited where I know you're more vibrant of a community than your website gives you credit for. Does that make sense? It's like you're way cooler than your website is. So make sure that the style of your website matches the culture of your church. And that doesn't necessarily happen with photos of the people at your church. It can happen with colors. It can happen with stock imagery. Not stock imagery of people that don't really go to your church, but stock imagery of a Bible, a sunset, a garden, something like that. And I'll show you that further down as I get through the slide deck. I'll show you some options for that. So I really want you to dive deep into this communication strategy if you're serious about changing your website. You don't just go in there and start clicking around and without a plan. And I think that's one of the most important things. And then that's going to help you, and it's going to help your team. It's going to help the website person, the webmaster, if they have a strategy in mind and guidelines to go by. So I don't just I maintain the EDO on my website, and anything that I put on that website has to fit the diocesan vibe, if you will. So I can't just, think something's cool and plop it on the website, right? And I think that that also has to be a kind of a consensus in the congregations as well, and that's for you to decide. That's not for the diocese to decide what your look and your style is. That's for you to decide as an individual congregation. And it should be somewhat exciting to you, I think, to dive into that and see, who you can be visually in a digital world. So we're going to get into the essentials later on. If you want to stick around, I'm going to build a website with you in Wix. So right now I'm just going to go through answering some of those questions about what should be on your homepage and what should be in your menus. So the essentials for your homepage, all of you had this first one: address, phone, email, not a contact form, but address, phone, some kind of a contact, an email. It would be nice if you had a contact form. I have had questions in the past. Do you need a contact form if you already have an address, email, and phone number? Yes, you do. You should not just have a contact form. That is actually a turnoff for a lot of people. Think about if you're, customer service wise you go to AT&T and you need to call somebody and all they have is a contact form. That's annoying. So same holds true for the church. You need to have the address, the phone number, and an email. Whether it's just the office email, that's fine. Whatever you as a church decide you need. But make sure that you have those things and not just a contact form. You don't need a contact form. Someone just typed in that the contact form doesn't send an immediate email. It shows up a day later. Yeah, that could be a website or an email issue, Sarah. So let's talk about that later. Because I'd want to know I don't know if you have the same email server as us. And maybe it's a form stack. Maybe you put a form stack on the website instead of doing it through WordPress. So, because we get our contact forms pretty quick. The service times and days, those should be up toward the top of your website. Something on your homepage, something very big and not in a paragraph form, I would say. Something that's like worship Sundays at 10 a.m. And then underneath that, here's a link to watch the sermon video or the live stream, or, you know, however you're doing it. If you prefer online worship, here's the link to watch the live stream. Something that simple. And on a few of the websites, I had to kind of look for the service times and days. And that was you know, we want to capture people's attention and answer their questions quickly when, and most people do go to a church website to find out where the service time or what the times are and when they're going to worship and if they can watch online. The other thing here on the homepage, which should be on the footer of your website, and most of you had it, of course, is a location. I wanted to give a shout out to, I think, St. Michael's and All Angels in Lincoln Park. Your website is really kind of nice. I like it. And that was easy to find information.
Thanks, Adrienne. I put a lot of work. It took me 2 months to build that website.
See, it takes time, everyone. And I think you're through Squarespace, Hope, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That's Paula has it set up through Squarespace. When I first got my hands on it, she's like, "Can you do something with this?" And I wanted to strangle the person who made it the previous time. It was awful. It was awful. It did. Well, it took me 2 months.
It shows. The 2 months work shows. So I could find like pretty much all this information super quick on their website. And that's what we're going for, because we do want to attract new people. And but we also want to keep the people who we have happy, right? So we'll get to that in a few minutes. But right now, if you look at your menu, get redundant and repeat information. That's okay to do. If you want to repeat your service time and day on a different page, do it. Someone may have missed it on your homepage, but when they're clicking around to the sermons page, write in-person worship at 10 a.m. on Sundays on that page as well. The information doesn't have to live in just one place. So don't worry about, repeat that critical information throughout your web page so that your website, so that they can, have your contact on every page. If you want to, you can put it down at the footer. It doesn't just have to be your address or your copyright. Have that, make sure that information's on every page when they're clicking around. So, your about page, you can put a little bit about your church. That's a great place for a picture of your building, things like that are timeless, photos that are timeless. That's what I want all of you to remember about this statement. Because I'm gonna be a little bit hard on you with some outdated photos, and I won't call you out specifically. I'm just gonna say it generally. But if you have some photos that are of your building, maybe that's a nice place to put the about. You have to decide what your church, what you want to share about your church. But in the first paragraph, write something about being an Episcopal church, worshiping in a traditional style, something faith-based, to give people an idea of what kind of church this is. You may have attracted somebody who's not an Episcopalian, heaven forbid. So that's kind of the stuff you want in the about page. We don't have to, you can further down the about, you can put something about the building was built in the 1800s or something, about that kind of history. But the first paragraph should be something really general about your church. Giving, that should be in a couple places on your site. Decide where it is, but I think it should be on the home page. I didn't put it up there, but donation button or redirect to the donation button. I couldn't find if I wanted to give to you guys when I was looking through your websites, I couldn't find a place to give. And you can always, if you don't have an online giving setup, you can always put in the EDOMI website and link to that, because they can give to congregations individually, and it goes straight to your congregation. So if you don't have a PayPal or some kind of a Vanco or whatever they use for online giving, you can always link to edomi.org/give, and that will redirect you to the diocesan giving page, and they can specify what congregation they want to give to. So this last one here, the I'm new and what to expect. This is kind of a new idea that's developing probably in the last 5 years, I think, of churches. And this comes from kind of the mega church world, that non-denomination, Kensington Church. I know you're all probably familiar with those large, giant churches. The turnover rate's pretty big. We tend to hang on to our people, but they have what is really welcoming about those church setups is that on their website and in their culture, they have what's called an I'm new and what to expect culture. So what they do is they assume that people are coming there who've never been to church before. And I think that's something that collectively on our websites, I've noticed that we lack. And I think it's important. And so that's something that you would have to discuss with your team, your redesign team, what you would put on there. But again, you would write the service times and days. This is important. How long is worship? That's an important question that a lot of people who've never been to church want to know. How long am I going to be there? Where to park? Handicapped accessible? What entrance to go in? Canon Hardy and I, when we were talking about this, she said, I've been to a couple churches and I didn't know what entrance to go in. That's important. Just something that simple that you already know. A new person might not know, and they're going to go to their website. And if you have this information there, they're already ahead of the game when they walk in. And one of the most difficult things for a person who has never been to church to do, actually for people who have been to church, one of the most difficult things to do is to walk into a different church. Think about the last time you walked into a church that you had never been to before. It's an uncomfortable experience, especially if they're switching faith, or if they've never been to church before. And those are the people we want to get as disciples. And I think that an easy way to do that is to just put that information on your website. That's not something we'd share on Facebook. That's something we would make a page that says what to expect. Or if you want, I've seen it put I'm new, and someone clicks on that. Dress code. This is, someone put in there what to do with children. Absolutely, that's true too. Are my kids welcome? Put that in there. Some churches, that's, you can have your children sit with you during worship, or we provide nursery care, or the, godly play starts at 10:30, something like that. And then also, the dress code. So we work with someone at the diocese. He's kind of new to church stuff. He's working with the bishop on some things, and he wanted to come to Easter service at the cathedral, and he wanted to bring his family, which is really cool. But he was texting me Saturday night, the day before Easter, and he was asking, what do I wear? What's acceptable? And of course, I told him you could wear your blue jeans or your Easter bonnet, and either one of them would be just fine. But that's an apprehension. That's like a point of anxiety that people have when they're going to go to a church. So putting in a dress code, I would suggest maybe not a strict dress code, but something that communicates we're casual and we're welcoming and come as you are, something like that. What's next? So they visited, and what's next? What's their action plan? So set up a meeting with the pastor. Do we have a button about that? Do we, what's next? Here's a comment card. Here's a connect form. What's next? Did you go to our service? Here, connect with us. There's a little form there that they fill out, and it goes to the pastor or it goes to the admin, somebody who can act on that. Maybe not the website person who, if they're not someone who would normally be in charge of reaching out to people or members. So I think that's important in all of the contact forms. Make sure that your emails are routed to someone who is comfortable reaching out to new people or to your members and can do it in a timely fashion. You can hear my dog barking downstairs. I'm sorry. The trains have been quiet though. So I'm gonna stop right. Oh, this is where I'm sorry. Let me just get through this slide and then we'll stop and I'll have ask for some questions. So we have here those are the main menus, kind of some support pages or optional pages, but please note, only if you can keep them current. If you can't update your website regularly, and that's okay if you can't. If you don't have a person who can log in once a week or twice a month or whatever to update the information on your website for these pages, don't put them in because they're going to look outdated, and that's a turnoff to a lot of people. Also, your members might be turned off by the fact that you have an event on there from November and it's April. So put those support pages in only if you can keep them current. The get involved page, a ministry page. Now you can have a ministry page that you don't have to necessarily update, but once a year, something about your ECW, something about your children's ministry, something about your knitters group, anything like that. And then maybe a contact person for each one of those. But you don't have to necessarily keep that updated, but once a year, kind of go through it and make sure everything's current. Don't have an events page if you can't update it. Don't have a photo gallery if you can't update it. You shouldn't have outdated photos on your website, and I'm so sorry. And they're lovely photos, and I love them. And I love seeing the smiling faces. But for new people, what you're saying is, this is who we are, and this is what we look like. And can be a turnoff for a lot of people. Studies have shown it's a point of conversation in a lot of marketing and communications for church and congregations. A pastor's blog. Clergy, if you're going to do a blog, you better be doing it often, maybe once a month. But if you have something on there from 6 months ago, it's not relevant information and needs to come down. So keep that updated, keep it current. If you can't, take the page down. There's nothing wrong with not being able to constantly update your website, but recognize what your capabilities are and then design within those capabilities. So I gave you a lot of information now. I preached to you a little bit from the marketing communications point of view. Give me some questions.
I guess one question I had about outdated photos of people.
Okay.
Should there be any photos of people then?
If I'm designing your site, no.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
But you as a church need to decide. But if they're going to be photos of people, don't put them on the homepage.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Adrienne,
Yes.
I like that idea because one of the things I hate is when I go on a website and I know I'm looking at a bunch of people that are dead.
That's a problem. Yeah, let's and God
Sort of
bless
says
them.
where that church is.
And it's beautiful that they live in our memories, but maybe not on your homepage. Maybe in your gallery. Maybe you put a page together that's a gallery, and that's where your photos live. We'll get into photos a little bit in a minute too.
Can I ask another question about the photos of faces?
Sure.
We have a lot of photos of people doing some kind of action that has been assigned with that page. Is that different from just like a group shot of people who went on the trip?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It is different. Like if you have a ministry page and you have a choir, which the cathedral does, and you have photos of the choir, that's absolutely relevant. But I think like the homepage stuff, the front door of your church, maybe don't have that kind of stuff, that page inundated with photos of us.
Okay, thank you.
I want to talk about language a little bit before we get too far into photos. Did anyone else have any questions before I go on?
I have just a simple question about pictures. Do you have like a guideline, like a picture should be current to the current season? Or I know we have some that the person was a child in the picture and is now an adult. And if you didn't know, that's okay, but you want to walk in and that's what the people look like now. But is there a guideline for how long a photo should be?
Lisa, you're at St. George Milford?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think that there is a guideline. I think it should be at least the current year, if not 12 months, for sure. That's a place for you to move your photos to your gallery. But as far as like your marketing photos, which would be the photos on your on your homepage or on your about page, or, although your about page, you could get away with a nice photo of your building, something like that. And then a couple shots of maybe, people just generically doing something, or the back of your church and the worship space. But, make sure it's, if the church isn't full, maybe just take a picture of the altar when it's decorated for Easter, something like that. So you're not taking a picture of an empty, or if your people tend to sit in the back rows, the 5 back rows, tell them to move up for the photo, don't be shy. Say, hey, I'm getting some photos here of, can you guys all move up and look forward so I can get the backs of you? And, you might have, I'm not saying stage photos, I want them to look genuine, but you might have to get people to not be so spread out in photos if you want one of your whole sanctuary. But if you can't get a good one of your sanctuary, get a nice one of your altar. Or throw one up of when the bishop's there. So people tend to be there for that. So
The
yeah.
year is a good timeline to kind of know, like at that point, it's probably like some kind of rule of thumb is good. And I like the idea of it not being people, because for us, we change things very quickly. But at the same time, we get really excited when we have new clergy, even if they're with us for a really short time. So, but keeping up with that shows it. But yes, okay. So thank you for answering.
You have people photos. If you're tired of looking at them, then they're old.
Yeah.
You know, if
Well,
the person in there is really old and they've grown up, it's time to take the photo away.
yeah, I would say, just keep them within the year, what's current,
Yep.
and that's sort of a safe guideline to be. Teresa, you have your hand up. I did notice that.
Thank you. So photos of the staff.
Yeah, you don't
is a
have
good
to,
idea.
that's up to you and your staff.
Okay. And then, yeah, the one with the liturgical ministers that you showed, would you say that's the kind of photo you might include?
Oh
Or-
yeah, this next one here.
That one, yeah. Or
Oh,
am
yeah.
I jumping ahead? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's where I'm going. I'm
Okay.
going next, but I want to touch on language for a minute.
Okay, thank you.
I've sat through quite a few of these how to market your church workshops over the years. And what I think is communicated most during these is, first of all, these little things like, what can you do today? And I like to say it in my everyday job. If I'm overwhelmed and there's something, and there's a lot going on, what can I do today to move toward my goal? And there's little things you can do. First of all, maybe just swapping out some of the pictures. The other thing is changing your language just slightly. So, and I don't have a slide for this, and I don't know why I don't have a slide for this, because I had one earlier, but it's somehow gone, which I'm sure I'll find later somehow in PowerPoint. But so the changing your language on your website to remove anything, or I shouldn't say remove anything. I don't want to get too strict with this and make you feel bad if you have any of this language, but start to remove some of the we statements and the us statements. So for instance, instead of saying join us, you might say just you're invited or welcome. So that changing those us statements and making them a you statement becomes a lot more welcoming. Every single church, well, not every single one, but most churches say, join us for the pancake supper, join us for Sunday worship. When you're outside of the church looking in, you're invited to our pancake supper. You and your family are invited to Sunday school this week. Just adjusting that language slightly actually goes really far in the minds of new people.
I have a comment.
Sure.
It seems to me like photography or having photos of congregants also is less inviting in a way, because you are, in other words, it maybe is better to have something that's more open so that people can imagine themselves there if they're interested in coming, in a way, instead of seeing who's already there.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. That's why I said if it was my website, I wouldn't have any photos.
Yeah,
of
be
anybody.
more of not a blank slate, but be an open slate that anyone could write their name on.
Right. And I
in a
think
way.
that's what and there's been a lot of conversation about this with the communicators group that I'm in. And I think that's what, and I don't mean to keep bringing them up, but they're very successful, you know, like a church like Kensington or one of those mega churches that, you know, people just flock to. I think that's what they're doing right in their marketing strategy, is they're keeping it generic and they're allowing the person to, exactly what you said, visualize themselves in the space.
But they also have like massive light shows and
yeah, I mean, it's a rock band, right? But not everybody likes that type of worship. So but everybody does like feeling like they belong. And how can you communicate that welcoming vibe on your website? And that's the goal, that's the plan that you need to figure out during that strategy meeting. You know, how can we visually welcome people? And I think that's what when I was given props to St. Michael's and All Angels, you know, their homepage it's pretty generic. I shouldn't say generic, I should say simple. And it's welcoming, you know, and they're not inundated with ministry news and things like that. Not that that's not important, because it is, but that could be on the members page, you know, and that's something simple you can say during your announcements. You know, if you want to know more about the rummage sale, go to the members page, you know, start redirecting people there so that they're not looking all over your website for the information that they need. You can say it's posted on the members page, you know, whatever. That's, and then that's where they start to go for all their information. And you don't have to have it on your home page. Do you get what I mean by that? So the photos, I'm going to touch on this just really quick. So we're almost at 8, and I want to start with the other side of the, you know, kind of putting together a, oh, Michelle, did I already answer your question? Sarah said you had your hand up.
no, I just had that
Oh,
comment.
that was the
about-
comment. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Sarah.
you.
So photography, you know, what are your goals? Better content. What does that mean? You know, maybe not empty tables at the pancake supper, you know, and I love my church. I do. And I love my pancakes at the pancake supper. But if it's not a room full of people with a lot of energy, it might not be the best photo to use on your website. It's a photo to post on Facebook, you know, because it'll still be in the photo albums on Facebook. You can still go back to it and look at it or whatever, but it's maybe not your marketing strategy. Better quality. Most phones now can take a really good picture. So the photo that's right here isn't a photo that I took. I love this picture. It's a little crooked if I want to get nitpicky, but it's a beautiful photo. And it was taken by someone when Bishop Perry was visiting, and it was on Facebook. And I downloaded it from Facebook without their permission. I'm only using it as a sample. But this was taken, uploaded to Facebook, and then re-downloaded from Facebook. And still the quality is really good. So it can be done. Go through your photos on your website and make sure they're good quality. They're not pixelated and grainy photos. And then if they are, remove them. You know, capture the moment. If you are clergy, encourage people to take photos. if it's a baptism, invite them up to take photos, I mean, to a point, you don't want them to be distracting, but, there's a way to do it, or, be open to posing for the photos. If it's your marketing person and they're trying to get something good for the Easter Sunday, whatever, encourage them to take photos and be patient and ask, first of all, ask permission, can I get some photos? Second, having their phones out isn't, disrespectful in a lot of ways. If they're just taking pictures, it's a good thing. They might help you out. And then ask for photos after an event. There's something that St. Stephen's does, which I think is really cool. So Andrea is she's like this. She wants people to take pictures. And so people are moving around while she's doing stuff and talking, and they're taking pictures, or they're, capturing the moments. And then she sends out emails and texts after the fact, and she's like, hey, send me your photos. Or where are they? Are they on the Google Drive? So have the option to have people upload things to a Google Drive or to a Dropbox, and have something where it's just a collection, because we don't have, the poster boards of photos from the youth group trip during coffee hour isn't what we're looking at right now. But we still want those photos to exist. We still want them in our library and in our hearts. So doing something like opening up the idea of a Google Drive or a digital photo library where people can put photos or upload them and access them is a really cool idea. So that might be where you're going to get your photos for your gallery. Should churches have formal permissions from parishioners? Underaged, absolutely. Children, absolutely. Your children's ministry director should have forms in the office signed from parents, photo release waivers. I would suggest trying not to use photos of children on your website. If they're doing something, maybe just the back of them, reaching for something, kind of think in an artistic way. Adults, you can ask permission. I'm going to put this on Facebook. Are you okay with that? But as far as a form for everybody, I think we're required through Safe Sanctuary for the children, but I don't think for the adults. So the Google Drive is, if you have a Gmail address, you automatically have a Google Drive. Most people have a Gmail address. That can be a little bit hard to, I guess, give the details about. But if you have a Gmail address, you have a Google Drive. And so what someone can do is upload you can invite them to your Google Drive. And then they can access it and add files if they're an editor. Does that help? Yeah, we had this conversation earlier at the diocese. If you open up the idea, first of all, no one should be on your website if they don't want their photo on the website. But in galleries or in private members only sort of situations, I think it's fair to just kind of share photos. Bob, see you later. All right. So the photos, stock photography. These are two sites that I love. The photos that I use for Bishop Perry's sermons when I'm posting, and Anna used these too, my predecessor, Anna used Unsplash. I've always used freeimages.com. They're beautiful photography, beautiful photos for free. If you download them, sometimes they ask you to put in a credit to the photographer. That's more Unsplash. Free Images does not. And these are like the Bible and the coffee cup image right next to it. That's from some Unsplash, I think. Images like that, you type in worship photos or Bible or holy or Jesus, in photos of stained glass windows and things like that come up. You might not want to use. Heather just said, hi Heather, that pixabay.com, she's typing in the chat, is a good one. I'll put that in for everyone. I've never used that one, but I'll trust you on that. Oh, Michelle says Pixabay is good too. So these photos are high quality and they're really pretty, some praying hands. There's also, sunrise, sunset, things like that. Just giving that, just giving them a feeling, of what your church is like, how you want them to feel, at peace, something like that. That'll go with your style. Do you have a memorial garden? Maybe you go out and take some pictures of your memorial garden, not the whole thing, maybe just a beautiful rose or, something like that, and share that as well. So you could, like Sarah, she takes her own, for the cathedral, she takes the stock photos for the cathedral. So she'll just take photos. Of course, the cathedral is very photogenic, but I think all of your buildings have beautiful qualities to them that and love and can capture. So taking some time when you're doing that strategy, that communication strategy, and deciding, maybe we set up some candles and take some pictures, just things that are around the building. And they don't necessarily have to be the people. When someone new walks in, they're going to notice those things too. And those are things you want them to notice about your building and about the space that they're worshiping in. So that can also give a warm, welcoming feeling if you have images like that on your website, instead of, you all have cute people and we love them and we love to see them. But again, maybe it's not the first thing you see when you go to the website. So this is where, if people want to drop off, who kind of already are set in their hosting and domain kind of things, they're allowed to drop off. I won't be upset. I'm not going to come chase you or mark you down. Everybody gets an A for today. But I want to go into the hosting, the difference between hosting and what your domain is, what your web hosting is, and then the design part of it. And so let me stop for a minute if anyone wants to say anything or ask questions before I move on.
I just have a question. Are you familiar with what Realm offers in terms of web space? I just recently learned that it's part of our subscription and I want to learn how to take advantage of it.
Okay, who do you subscribe to, Lisa?
On
WordPress or something?
Right now, we have a website through Wix.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay.
But Realm also offers a part of it. And Realm is a content, I guess, relationship management system, but it also tracks donations and things like that. But like one of the things that we get in addition to paying for that at St. George's is that we can, I'm not sure if we can host there or we can link to our website through there, but that it's a feature included in Realm. But if it's not something you've heard of, then that, and it could be like, I think Vanco is also another name for the same type thing.
Now, Vanco, I know is a donation plugin, like it's or not a donation service for managing giving. Realm, I don't know anything about, but here's my disclaimer before I go forward. There are so many website hosting and design options out there. You're probably all like inundated with them if you've tried to look around. Someone I was talking to on this call had said that their website was through Wix. And so that was something I knew. Wix was great, heard wonderful things about it, but only last week did I go in there and try to learn it. And I think I know a lot about it just by working a couple times in it. But I don't know everything about it. So if that is part of Wix, I don't know yet, but I'll look it up and reach out to you if it's anything special, for sure.
No, I think my concern is it's a duplicate service. And so if you're not familiar with it at all, that's okay. We will talk offline about it soon.
Okay. So I'm not going to focus on WordPress. I love WordPress. I use WordPress. That's what I use to update my sites. And I see, Joan, you have a WordPress website, and I love it. And I see you're pretty happy with it, you're saying. Full disclaimer, while my degree is in computer art, I'm mostly, an animator and a designer. I had a couple, now we're looking at 22 years ago when I graduated with my degree in computer art. So my education and websites was HTML. So it was like in the JavaScript, and it was a nightmare and it was terrible. And so I am really thankful that of the evolution of web design has come this far. WordPress, if you have a good template, is awesome. If you don't have a good template and you're having to deal with HTML, which I know Clarkston is, it can be a nightmare. And it can be very difficult to manage. So I don't know if you're still on here or not, Clarkston, but I know that I had a conversation.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And you just convinced me we need to change.
And that's not hard to do. That's my next step is
We'll be calling you.
Okay. My next step is encouraging you that if you are stuck in well, first, let me explain this to you. Some of you may not know. I want to give you a difference between where your web address exists and where your hosting exists. They don't have to be the same place. So for instance, edomi.org, we pay WordPress annually for our web address. So we have that bill, which is like, I think $18 a year or something, that we pay WordPress because that's where our domain name was purchased from. If we stop paying that, we no longer own that address. So you have to pay that annually. And it's somewhere, it shouldn't be over $20. I mean, it can be anywhere from 12 to 15, somewhere around there. I think we might pay 18, and I'm not sure why. But The hosting. So your domain name pretty much, it can stay where it is. That's fine. The hosting is where you can move that around. That's the place, that's like the suitcase of where your information exists. So you have different website hosts. You have GoDaddy, you have WordPress, you have Wix, Squarespace, Weebly, any one of these are all hosting sites. Now, you can also buy your domain from there, but most of you already have a domain and you don't need to buy another one, right? So we can take your current domain and move it over to a hosting platform without a whole lot of complications. If you're going to want to redo your website and you want something that is more user-friendly than WordPress. WordPress can be complicated. Sarah's saying that she uses a Divi Builder with WordPress, and that's cool because it's a drag and drop module, but that's, that's like an upgrade. There's a cost, there's a cost involved in everything, right? But you don't need to be afraid of it. What you can do, what I want you to walk away with, if you're planning on designing your website or redesigning or whatever, or moving it over for hosting, what I want you to walk away with is the idea that you can move things easily once you have your design in place. You can call customer service and say, okay, I built my site on Wix, and now I want to take my www address and I want to move it over to this hosting plan. Can we do that? And someone on the other end will say, yes, awesome. They'll try to sell you 15 more things, and then they'll move it over for you. It's super easy now compared to 22 years ago. You have options. You would never stay with a phone company that you were unhappy with, would you? T-Mobile, you don't get service, your calls are dropped, whatever. I don't know, Verizon, you hate it. Where are you going to go? You're going to switch. You'll go to AT&T. You'll maybe go back to Verizon. I don't know. You shop around. You are allowed to shop around for website hosting. I encourage you to. But there are so many website hosting providers out there. I have narrowed them down to 3 and I added Wix in there because I really like it after playing around in it. I have used Squarespace and I've used Weebly. Like I said, I use WordPress for the diocesan website. But I really like Wix. Postco is something different. Melissa, you're going to St. Catherine's, correct? Is she still on here? I take that as a no. Okay, so
She's on, just muted and off camera.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay. So also, let's see. So I think that St. Catherine's is the only one that's currently hosted by 501 websites. And that is, that's a company. There's a guy named John. He goes to St. Clair's in Ann Arbor. Does that sound familiar? St. Clair? Yes. And he runs a website company, and it's called 501 Websites. And he's offering for, I think, well, St. Clair and St. John's Plymouth and St. Catherine's are all under that 501 Websites umbrella. He's developed sites for all of those congregations. He also has an agreement and a partnership with the Diocese in Ohio and with the diocese in one of them in Maryland or somewhere around there. Anyway, he's offering for people in the Diocese of Michigan a design and build and then hosting. So he's saying that at the first year you would pay an initial fee for design and build, which would be $500 to $750 depending on what you want. Then after that, it would be about $150 a year, which is around the normal range. And he would put you through WordPress training. So it's like a couple of days with him. He takes over your computer. He did it with me. He takes over your computer and you go through using how to use WordPress. He uses a Divi Builder, Sarah, just like the cathedral does. And then you also get support with that. So if you don't want to design and build your own website and you want everything just sort of done for you, that is a good option. I have worked with him in the past at a different church in the United Methodist world. And it was smooth, it was wonderful. But the basic website would be about $500 to $750 to design. No, that is an option. But I do want you to consider doing it yourself. There's a cost saving involved, and it's pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is, just for the last few minutes, I want to take you through Wix. And again, like I don't, and I want to say too, like while I've worked with John and I know that he's capable and he's very good at what he does, I'm not in a partnership with him or anything. I'm just giving you one more option. So let me share my screen to the Wix page, and then we don't have much time, but luckily we don't need much time to build a website on Wix. So, excuse me. You don't have to do anything or commit to anything on Wix, Squarespace, or Weebly. You can go in there and build a website that doesn't at all affect your current website. You can get a design going. You can privately publish it. You can share it with others. You can go through the whole design process without any interference on your regular website. And then when you're ready to launch your site, then you do the hosting and you pay for the hosting, you pay for the, security or whatever else, all the other stuff they're going to try to sell you, which you should get security on your website. Just footnote that if they offer you the web security, please do take it. It will cut down on the spam emails and things that you get. So everyone should be seeing my sites, it says. So I'm in Wix. I signed up with my email address. I created a password, and that's all the information they wanted from me. I don't have to put in a credit card at first. I don't have to do anything but put my email address in. This is a great way to learn. And you have this tool here where you can play around with this depending on your patience level, and you're not going to mess anything up, which is really kind of nice. It takes the fear out of doing this. So I went to, Wix.com, went through the initial sign up of my email address. Now I'm going to create a new site by pressing this button. It's going to ask me some questions. What kind of website are you creating? This had me laughing a little bit. There's no option for an Episcopal church, which I feel really I feel a little slighted about. So I'm going to pick the United Methodist Church because I sit on the United Methodist Marketing Committee for Greater Detroit District. So I'm going to pick United Methodist Church. It asks me, what do you want to add to your website? I don't really need bookings or a chat, but I do need video. I'd like to think about some groups. And again, you can change all this stuff later. I might add my Instagram feed. Maybe some events, I don't know. So I'm going to click next. Now it asks me, do I want Wix to create a website for me? Absolutely. Why should I do it myself when they're going to do it for me? But does it cost anything? Let's find out. Add the name of my business. Oh, it's giving me an online store. What? Hold on. Let me go back. I might have clicked something wrong. Let's see. I want video. Oh, it picked up online store for some reason. Let's try a Trinity Church. See what happens there. I'm going to go with video, groups, events, Instagram. Oh, I know what I might have clicked on the online store there. Okay. Well, it's asking me online store. Let's see what we can do here. Say no. St. Someone's Church. It gives me a theme here. What do I want to pick? Let's go with this. You can always change this later, I found. And now it's going to give me some options on my homepage design. So it's already kind of put together a design for me. For some reason, it's giving me an online store and not a church. I feel like it does this to me, like because I did this with Canon Hardy the other day and the same thing happened. I'm going to go back. I'm going to leave this and sign out and sign back in. But you know what the beauty of it is? I haven't messed anything up. Because
I found it fascinating yesterday and I still find it fascinating today.
Yeah, Nardi, you've been so quiet.
I'm learning. I'm in learning mode.
Okay. All right. I'm going to sign up with my regular email. Let's just go from scratch. Sign up. All right. What did I get wrong? Oh, I forgot the C. Uh-oh. Trying to make this look easy and it's proving me wrong. Oh, apparently I already have that email. Well, let's go back to my EDOMI account.
You were on the sign up page, not the login page.
Oh yeah, that's what I was trying to do that. Let's see here. I'm going to move this to trash. So this is actually good that you're seeing me mess up because you can easily trash your site and create a new one till you get it right. Let's try the Pentecostals, see what happens there. All right, I want to get rid of those. I want video and I want groups and I want an Instagram feed. Ah, what is the name of your church?
It was your event. The RSVP says to sell tickets.
So, yeah,
Oh,
I think
that's
that's
what it
what
was.
happened.
That's what it was. Thank you. Okay, let's go with this one. I kind of like that design. So this, well, this I love, but let's look at the kind of photos they have on these web pages really quick. We got a couple cute little adorable children, a pastor there, but for the most part, you know, they're pretty generic. You've got the cross here, the hymnals. You guys have nice hymnals, right? Take some pictures of them. The Bible, you know, things like this, they're really pretty. I mean, dropping in some, you know, congregants too, that could be pretty, but let's use, what design should we use? We'll go to use this one. So it's going to ask me what pages I want now. I want an about page. I want a leadership page. They're using that join us. They're not supposed to use, but we'll do that one too. We'll change that to welcome or I'm new. We want a giving page. We want a sermon page. And then we can do a what's happening page. Maybe that's our member page. Has anyone ever used this builder before? That's on here? Like I said, I'm pretty new at this. So at the moment, so this is a full website that's built. And what you can do, can you see my whole screen? Did it just like open up more? So you can see that like I can start to edit this page. So I can come in here and click on the sections and a little section design thing opens up over here. And if I go to the description, I have active text that I can edit. And it's live updates. Everything that I type in or click on can be changed. And do you see, tell me if you don't see the sidebar over here, the design section over here. Okay, I'm gonna assume you all see it. So as I click through these little sections, there's a little edit button, and then this section over here changes. So it's pretty user-friendly as far as I can see. The other thing is there's this video area. I clicked on that. I wanted video on my page. What I can do is go to manage. And I can drop in the Episcopal Diocese of Michigan YouTube channel in that box. Uh-oh, my screens are, I have too many windows open here. Let's see. It's going to say embed videos from YouTube. I'm going to put in our link to the diocese and hit next, add feed. And all right, we're good here. And it's going to pull in all of Bishop Perry's sermons from the last few weeks. It has auto saving in Wix. So you don't have to think about uploading a sermon every week when you're using something like Wix, and because it'll auto update as I upload things to YouTube, it's going to automatically update my Wix page because I just linked the two things together. And so doing things like this makes it so much easier on the person whose job it is to update the website. Using a platform like Wix, you know, this is probably just the fourth time I've been in Wix, and I'm still a little bit like bumpy with it. But it's easy to learn, and really it's beautiful. So if we go to preview our website, it's telling me I'm in preview mode. I still have an option to edit the site, and I can preview this website, and it's beautiful. I would have to customize it and put in my own pictures. I'd have to connect my own YouTube page down here. Instagram. If you have Instagram, you can put that in there. It'll automatically update. I have to, you know, we have a contact information. You know, you'd want to put something here about your Sunday service times or anything like that. And then you also have these individual pages you can go and customize. Your leadership, you can change the name. It doesn't have to be leadership. You can put staff. You have a sermons page. You have a giving page where it's just drop in a photo there, change the link here, and you know, you're welcome to write whatever you want over here. So I'm just trying to encourage you all, if you're unhappy with your current website hosting, there are easier options out there that are not that expensive. We're talking about $150 a year if you're willing to update it, that can do so much for you. And I, you know, that's just has been my experience right now with Wix.
Adrienne?
Yes.
This is Lori from Holy Faith in Saline. I just wanted to, I've been using Wix right for the last 10 years or since they've been on.
Hey, so you're the professional on the line.
No, I'm not a professional. I'm a graphic designer by trade, marketing and communications by trade, but we presently have Weebly, and I hate it because I use all the graphic design programs and I want to change font sizes, you know, to like maybe, you know, different things, and they only allow you to do certain things. But I love that it makes that I can change these things. I've never used to build it for you, but I've used the design part of it too. And even the design part of it, somebody who's never had, one of my clients, I just trained one of their people, and like within an hour, the guy was doing stuff, you know, that, you know, he says, my God, I feel like a pro on it. And it's a very easy program to learn once you get in there. So I just wanted to echo that I really like Wix. And that's we're in the process of redesigning our website, and we're going to go from Weebly to Wix.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'd encourage that to go from Weebly to Wix. What I want to just point out right before we go, because I know we're a few minutes over, is you don't have, like, your site can be live, but only you can view it. If you go to publish, it's going to say use the free Wix domain, and, you know, we'll use that. And we'll publish and continue. And so this is like a link you can share with your team or with your, you know, whoever you want to bounce ideas off of. You can say, hey, take a look at the website, proofread the website, you know, do all those things. Your site's published, Now it asks you to connect your own domain. When you're ready to connect your own domain, you can do that. And it's going to give you some hosting options here. So what I know about Wix is they're like, only 3 days, you can get this deal for only 3 days, but it seems like you can always kind of get those deals. So don't be too pressured by that. But
it used to be only a couple times a year that you could get the 50% off, but I think since the pandemic and more people are doing online things, I've noticed that the sale has been on more frequently, the 50% off.
It
and that
has,
really
yeah.
is a cost savings. So
yeah, so don't pay full price. Wait for one of those little sales to come around, or call and talk to someone, because I hear their customer service is really great. First, I think they're going to reroute you to like a, what can I help you with page. But if you click around, you do eventually find a 1-800 number to call. So that's my sales pitch for Wix. They didn't endorse me or give me any money for that. but I am really happy with it. And when Canon Hardy was going through my presentation with me, she felt like she could build a website right after it too. So
I did. Yes, I do. Yes, I can.
So I'm gonna get off the line with all of you and let you get back to your evenings. But I am going to put this information out there next week. Give me a few days to do my other job, and then I want to put together the PowerPoint and the video on the EDO on my website for anybody to take a look at. You can always email me or call me. My contact information is on the EDO on my website. And if you have any questions or follow-up questions, email me. I want your churches and your congregations to succeed and to, and I think that this is a really good first step. And it's a big step, but it's definitely a step worth taking. So, so I wish you luck, and I will answer any questions as I'm able through your process. And thank you so much for being here.
Yep, and thank you, Adrienne. Adrienne's a wonderful colleague and hard worker and very knowledgeable about her craft, and we're so glad she's on the bishop's staff. And thank you all for taking time to come out with us tonight. I know I learned a lot. I hope you did too. And Adrienne, you don't have any worries about me taking your job, but
thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Adrienne.
Bye, Ken Hardy. See you later. Well, tomorrow.